Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope you're all doing well as we come to the end of week 3 of Tarkir Dragonstorm. I was able to climb up to the top 100 Mythic this weekend with Azorius Omniscience. I'm sure you're all very familiar with that deck at this point. Same with Mono Red. So the point on Sundays is to talk about decks that have been successfully piloted to Mythic that are not your typical meta pick. So this one's going to include a little bit of last season, and then a couple of these are also from early on in the season, the May season. So the first one we've got here is 5-color Reanimator by XISTRI. Went 40 and 25 for a 62% win rate in Mythic, and it's only called 5-color Reanimator because it has Atraxa Grand Unifier. You definitely don't need to be running Atraxa. This archetype works with whatever threat you want to be reanimating, right? So you've got Valgavoth, you've got Atali. You can just keep it strictly Rakdos. Sometimes you'll hear this referred to as Rakdos Reanimator as well. This one is a little bit of an older version of it because it's not running a lot of the newer cards that we have seen explored in this archetype. So I've seen like Fear of Missing Out, which is the 2/3 that you see a lot of times in Gruul Delirium, that allows you to discard a card. That's a way to kind of enable your graveyard, along with like Bitter Triumph, some way of getting your Reanimator target into the graveyard. Fear of Missing Out is pretty decent for that. I've seen some lists running the Rite of the Moth, which is a Reanimator that requires white, but has flashback and you can cast it multiple times. I've also seen Urini, the Song Unending, the really big 10/10 dragon that deals damage equal to the number of lands. I've seen that one. It's got protection from white and black. That one is a top-end threat that's potentially better than or just different than, Valgavoth or Atraxa. Nomad Outpost for the fixing has made it in, especially if you're more interested in playing the Rise of the Moth. Tersa Light Shatter is the 3-drop 3/3 that if you have 7 or more things in your graveyard, it's another enabler, just like Fear of Missing Out, that can help you get your cards into the graveyard. Seen that explored to some extent in this archetype. And then also the Mardu Siegebreaker, which allows you to create a copy of something on the battlefield, and then when it attacks, you're able to create a copy of that exiled creature. So it's a way of kind of giving yourself haste instead of the Bitter Reunions, or in addition to the Bitter Reunions. But it's, the Mardu Siegebreaker itself does not have haste, but it's kind of it's a way to set it up, right? So this one is running the Elder Dragon War. We don't see this all the time in Rakdos Reanimator. It's a Wrath though. Same with the Brotherhood's End. We usually see, like, it's not uncommon to have the Brotherhood's End, especially with the Corey Steel Cutter coming in. This Brotherhood's End then allows you to sweep the board quite effectively. Atraxa has also got a second copy here. We usually only see one of these. We've got 2 Virtue of Persistence instead of just 1. This kind of helps out against Mono Red. We've got the Brass Tunnel Grinder is also an additional copy from what we usually see. And then we've got 1 Seismic Monstrosaur, which I think is kind of a funny one because, this one's kind of a non-card, right? Like, you don't usually see it. It allows you to Mountain Cycle, and then you can tap 2 in a red to sacrifice a land to draw a card. So it can help you find additional gas. But I don't think is not typically included in the build. And then, then the rest of it is like, this is also kind of a, this is also a unique take on the lands that we see for the archetype. So you've got like the Conduit Pylons to help you surveil, to fill the yard. You've got a lot of these surveil lands like the Rockish Theater to help you fill as well. Some of the things that are not being run is like, it doesn't have the second copy of the Sulphurous Springs, doesn't have the third copy of the Black Cliff Black Cleave Cliffs, etc. So they kind of took their own little unique twist on it, but you've got pretty much everything that you need to get the archetype to function. And if you haven't played Rakdos Reanimator, it's a little bit it does struggle against Azorius Omniscience. But because you have the Brotherhood's End and you have the Harvester of Misery, and like you have some of these tools to help you kind of reset the board against the Quarry Steelcutter decks, it grew in popularity last week because somebody took down a tournament with it in Best of 3. And if you haven't played it, it does work relatively well, and as showcased by Ixtree's climb into Mythic. All right, and another one that people have been talking about that has definitely been growing, getting more and more attention is Jeskai Control. This list was created or piloted by Incogmos, went 121 and 82 for a 60% win rate into Mythic, and this one is also taking a little bit differently than what I've seen a lot of the Jeskai Control builds going in. So like usually we see a full playset of the Lightning Helix, third copy of Beza. You usually see a Braid as well. This one's not running the Abrade. Sometimes I guess there's an argument about whether or not you should main deck Abrade in Best of 1. With Quarry Steelcutter being the most popular archetype, I have seen more and more lists including them. Chandra's Hope's Beacon has been included in some lists. It's not in this one. You don't have Ill-Timed Explosion, which is a pretty good Wrath that also can be card draw. That works well. 3 Steps Ahead is not being run in this list, and neither is the Rediscover the Way or the Jeskai Revelation. But what this deck is doing that is kind of cool, is kind of unique, right? So we've got like the Soul Guide Lantern here to answer Azorius Omniscience. This is a pretty good tool. You can answer the Soul Guide Lantern, so as you'll see here shortly, it's not like the Pithing Needle effect, where they have blast zones, they have ways of getting around the Soul Guide Lantern. They have temporary lockdown as well, but it still makes it harder for Azorius Omniscience opponent to be able to play around this. But what's really unique about this build is that they're bringing in 3 Blind Mice. And the 3 Blind Mice is an infinite combo if you can enable it, and you can enable it through Shiko Paragon of the Way. And so you create a copy of the 3 Blind Mice, and then because like the copy comes in as a token, once it's a token, then you can create a token that's a copy of a target token that you control. So once you create a token of 3 Blind Mice, you can create infinite tokens of 3 Blind Mice that continue to create infinite amounts of 1/1s. So you can start the loop with Shiko as soon as you can get the 3 Blind Mice into the graveyard. Now, there's not a whole lot of ways of getting things into your graveyard other than the discard off of the Meringue River Regents, Coil and Catch, and or just playing it out and letting it resolve. But you do have that kind of infinite loop, which I thought was kind of a neat one that you really see played a lot. This one's also running a full playset of Get Lost. But we've got Day of Judgment for the Wrath, the 4-costed Wrath, and then the Dispelling Exhale in as a full playset, and a full playset of the Meringue River Regent / Coil and Catch. And we've seen some interesting builds with this card as well in Azorius Omniscience, doing loops off of Founding the Third Path, where you can mill infinitely without having a sideboard, so you do not need the Invasion of Arcavios. I've had a couple of you ask if we think the Azorius Omniscience deck will still be around when Invasion of Arcavios leaves, and I think the answer is yes. Founding the Third Path rotates out at the same time that Invasion of Arcavios does, but the Meringue River Regent, like, we will be able to find some sort of thing to loop infinitely that will give us some sort of ETB value, right? You could even take it into Esper and bring in black instead if you needed to bring in just even the black Dragonstorm could be a thing to loop, that sort of thing. So we'll see some sort of we'll see some interesting combo decks alive and well. So both of my meta breaker picks this week were, at least these 2 were combo decks. And I guess that last one was like a control deck with a combo in it, right? But still kind of fun to see an infinite combo. And so this one's Azorius Artifacts by WoW GS, and this one was one that was from this season. So the other ones, some people might say they just climbed in at the end of the last season and aren't particularly competitive decks. But the Azorius Artifacts deck here, we went 88 and 58 for a 60% win rate into Mythic. And I talked about Azorius Artifacts in week 1 of Tarkir, and then, I was saying craft with care. We'll see what happens with this archetype, and then that archetype kind of fell out of the top meta, right? This one is taking a different approach, so we do still have kind of the way of ramping up with the repurposing bay off of the 2-costed artifacts into the Simulacrum Synthesizer, and we are running the 4 copies of the Unified Battlefront. So we are, there's a good chunk of the core that's still the same. Dropped 1 spring-loaded saw blades, dropped 1 clay-fired bricks, notably dropped all 4 copies of Temporary Lockdown. Instead is running the split up with the Authority of the Consuls, which pairs nicely, and the Authority of the Consuls helps this deck perform better against, Corey Steelcutter and Mono Red, any of the aggro decks. We kind of took off the top end, so no Nexus of Becoming. Took away the 4 Assimilation Aegis, which was the blue, white, and the equipment for 1 blue and white that can exile something and then become that copy of it. We also got rid of the Fountain Ports, and we got rid of the Riptide Gear Hulk. So a little bit less of the little one-ofs on the top end, and we're bringing in 4 copies of the Stone Brain. Now, these could be the Soul Guide Lantern if you would rather do that, but the Stone Brain is also another way to hate on the Azorius Omniscience deck, and being able to name Omniscience and remove it entirely from their deck makes it like they have to answer this much sooner, and they can't just use Blast Zone as a way to get rid of it. So they have to hit Temporary Lockdown, and you've got 4 copies of the Stone Brain, so eventually the idea being you're going to get something down that will just remove their strategy, and once you do that, you win against that archetype immediately. We also have the Enigma Jewel, which allows us to craft with things like the Stone Brain, which makes it a little still relevant-ish, and it can be repurposed into the Simulacrum Synthesizer. So this archetype can get away with playing the Stone Brains, where the other archetypes kind of need to have the ability to cycle the Soul Guide Lantern in case you come up against like Mono Red. But it's a kind of a unique take in this one. And then we also have this one's running a full play set of the Meticulous Archive. We don't need the Surveil, I don't think, super, but it's fine. We've got a single copy of the Cryptic Coat, which can give some archetypes problems with the unblockable and the ability to just cycle it and bring it back as a recurring way to trigger the Simulacrum Synthesizer. We've seen Cryptic Coat explored in this archetype before as well, and I like it. We've got a 3rd copy of the Fomori Vault. I think it's a little excessive to go all 3, but if you're not playing the Fountain Ports, then sure. And Split Up, like I mentioned, works really well with the Authority of the Consuls. And then, yeah, we've just got a Singleton Plains. So I hope these find you well. I'm a big fan of the Azorius Artifacts build, so once I get done with collecting all of the cards for Tarkir, I'll be definitely exploring the Unified Battlefront. I'll probably end up... I think the amount of packs that I have right now is I've got 159, so we're on our way, And I also there's a Sibsig ceremony deck that I guess I'll show you guys really quick, but I do want to say that you should be careful. Be careful with crafting this one. So this one was not piloted to Mythic. It is not actually that good of a deck. But I did want to just talk about it because it's a fun deck, right? And this one, it's a 2-card combo. Technically 3 cards, but the 2 cards is turn 3 you play Spinner of Souls. Turn 4 you play the Sibsig Ceremony. And then some sort of creature that costs 2 colorless, so you can play it for free. So you can play this for X=1 for free. You can play any of these for free since it makes it cost 2 less to cast. It then enters the battlefield and immediately dies, creating a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. That then triggers Spinner of Souls, which then you reveal cards from the top of your library to then hopefully hit into another one that then lets you continue the cycle. Now, notably, Scrapwork Mutt helps you discard cards that are dead cards in your hand that stop the loop. You also have the Puppeteer, which allows you to kind of continue the loop if your Spinner of Souls is dead, since when it dies, you can return another creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So if you play this and they kill it, you can then play the Puppeteer later to bring back the Spinner of Souls to re-enable the combo. You still need to get that into the graveyard though. Trailblazer allows you to draw cards that you can cycle through that way. It will cost 1 green to do, so you can end up getting stuck. The Gleaming Barrier will create you treasure tokens though that you can then use to cast the cards that will cost that are not entirely free to play. And then you've got Recruiter, which is the way that you give all of your zombies haste so that they're all attacking as 3/2s, so that you don't have to wait 2 turns to complete the combo. And then Beseech the Mirror helps you find the Sibsig Ceremony or the Spinner of Souls to enable your combo. So, difficult to pilot, but really, really fun to do. And it will catch people off guard, because people will be like, what the hell are you doing? You know, people are like, oh, it's Golgari. Wait, no, it's not Golgari. And then, like, you pop off with this infinite. It's not technically infinite, but, like, you pop off with this combo and hit them for a lot of damage out of nowhere. So, hope this finds you well, everybody. I hope you're all enjoying the Tarkir standard meta. And I will be back on tomorrow to talk about week 4 of Best of 1, Best of 3 in Aether Drift. So, take care, everyone. Good luck in your RCQs and climbing the ladder.